G'day everyone, it's James Davis from the Paxate Academy down here in APAC again, and this time I'm joined by Michelle from Liongard. How you doing?
Thanks for having me on.
Where are you located?
So I'm down under in Sarasota, Florida, is where I am.
Nice, a bit different climate to where I'm in tropical Hobart down here, nice and south. So thank you for joining me. I'm really excited to have you on because it's a topic what we're going to talk about today around governing data for your client environments. It's something not many people talk about, but when I talk to a lot of MSPs, they struggle with the configuration management database and inventory management, but very few are doing it. So we're just going to dive in. I'm just going to ask you a tough question: is where, from your experience, where do you see the industry is at with inventory management and configuration databases?
Yeah, so, well, first I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So, I had run one of the largest MSPs in the States, roughly over $100 million in revenue and over 14 locations. And, before that, I ran a large unified communications company. And one of the things that I see is that many MSPs don't understand the value of um, what good inventory management and more importantly, what good governance looks like around their IT policies, and that is the starting point for cybersecurity. You can have all the cyber tools in the world, but if you don't have good IT policies in place and then a way to audit and have proof to your customers that of what you're doing, it's going to be very hard for you to be able to charge what you're likely worth to your customers. So it's fundamental in my mind. It's sort of the table stakes, but oftentimes MSPs just aren't quite there yet. And so I'm here to sort of say from the experience I had running an MSP, from acquiring MSPs, that you have to this is a fundamental starting place in terms of understanding what you have and then having configuration change detection and response to see where configuration drift might happen. It is absolutely the starting place for MSPs to have a successful business and a successful cybersecurity practice if that's something that they're building in, which they should.
Well, it's a very good point around the cyber side because if you look at the CIS controls, the first two controls of the 18 are all about inventory and assets and configurations, and your policy is exactly what you said. It's that starting point. And I'm curious from your perspective, why do you think people aren't doing very well at this and aren't implementing ways of managing it?
Well, it takes time, and it's one of the things that, again, from the perspective of when you're a busy MSP, sometimes it's like the cobbler's children have no shoes, right? And so I like to say that ultimately it's your responsibility to slow down so you can speed up, to put in place the right fundamental tools to help you get an understanding to better and faster onboard your customers and get that inventory to be able to set those policies in place. When the best practice around a Liongard implementation, we're best suited for customers that have more than 15 managed environments that they're trying to run. Um, what we'll tell you is that you do have to take time to set these things up. It's not something that you don't just deploy one agent and then it never needs to be looked at again. This is something that you have to be serious about. And when you're serious about it and you put a little time up front, and I'm not talking weeks, I'm talking hours. You put hours into this, you'll get more than hours and more than weeks, maybe even months back into your text time, both from a perspective of being able to understand where the risk is and the cyber posture of your individual customers, but also just a baseline understanding and productivity improvement for your service delivery people, for your NOC, all of these things, and also if you're again setting up any cyber practices, this is going to make sure that you don't have additional risk that's put in place because you haven't put the fundamentals in.
So we're talking about this like we're assuming people understand what inventory management and the CDMB is. Can you explain a bit more, like what's the ins and outs? What does it actually look like?
Yeah, so for us, when you go through inventory management, just think about it in terms of when you're onboarding a new customer. You need to have an understanding of what do they have. So if you're able to deploy Liongard, you're able to actually get a good understanding of their cloud assets, of their network assets, and of their endpoints. So now you have a full view of what they have in their environment, where they stand today on their current configurations. So you get a snapshot of all those configurations across all those systems, and think about the time it would take you to document those systems manually. With a Liongard, you get that capability. That snapshot of those configurations is there. Then you'll hopefully have a point of view on what policies and configurations you want that to have. Then you can work to actually put those in place. Great. Now you can have monitoring and the capability to see, is there any configuration drift from the policies you've set and the configurations you've set in the system. And then you can rewind back in time up to 18 months to understand what has changed in that environment at any given time. And you can be alerted to changes, and those can go directly into your PSA or into your RMM from a response perspective. All of those pieces can be there for you if necessary, if there is configuration drift. And by the way, there's always configuration drift. There's always somebody changing something that you didn't expect.
And that's an interesting concept because having worked in an MSP before, I've seen back in the old days where a tech would do a firewall change on a Friday night, and then the poor guys on a Monday morning would rock up and the client's calling and the guy hadn't entered their time, and we spent hours working out what the issue was, where if we were alerted there was a change to the configuration, we would have known.
You would have known, and how many hours could be saved. Or better yet, I mean, there are times, look, where, a customer calls up. My favorite is a customer calls up and demands MFA be turned off for some system. And then the tech with the best of intentions is going to go turn that back on. Oh, forgets. First of all, you get an alert that your tech had done something that you didn't want them to do, like turning off MFA. And then all of a sudden, let's just say a hacker gets into that system that doesn't have MFA on, runs up an Azure bill, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. If you had Liongard, first of all, you'd know that MFA had been turned off. You would know that a new global admin came into your system, and you would also be able to have a level of billing reconciliation. All of those things, if you have Liongard, would avoid those kinds of problems. But let's say you didn't avoid any of those problems. You didn't pay attention to the alerts. You would at least be able to go back and prove back in time to your cyber insurance company that before your tech did something inappropriate, you had policy in place, you had MFA in place, and this was a configuration drift issue, but based on reasonableness, it was in place, and you would be able to get them to pay out. You would not get them to pay out if you couldn't prove that.
I'm going to ask you a bit of a technical question. And so
Sure.
I'm curious, like when we're talking about the configuration data and the policies, let's use a firewall as an example. What sort of data do we get out of that for the configuration? And why is that important?
Well, look, it could be anything around ports being open. It could be, there are tons of things that we're what patch level something is on. All of these things are areas where you can have, challenges. Again, who's got credentials? Have credentials been, is there a new admin coming in? These are all the different types of areas where potential risk can get introduced if you don't have a tool like Liongard that's exposing that information to you.
It's very easy, like we're all struggling with seeing that sort of configuration data, even that example of the firmware. If unless you've got a standardized stack and you're using it, the cloud portal of one of the major MSP firewall providers, how are you going to track that sort of information centrally without manually doing it? Is what a lot of people struggle with. So that sort of single pane of glass, and I hate that term because there's 50 single pane of glasses around the place. It obviously consolidates all that information down. So I'm curious from that point of view is what's your sort of best practice of where this information should actually be stored? Is it PSA? Is it RMM? Is it your documentation system? Where should the central point of truth be?
We take the stance of where do you want it to be stored. We're going to give you the ability to view that data where either within our system or where you want it. We don't take a perspective that it's got to be stored in Liongard. We're taking a view of all of it. We have over, I think it's something like 80 integrations now across. So if we don't have an inspector for it now, we likely will in the future. In fact, one of the things that we're building into our roadmap is a sort of bring your own inspector. It's not here yet, but we truly are sort of trying to give you the ability to manage this where you want to manage it. But giving you the view within Liongard to what's changing and giving you that easy view within Liongard. But we can push those alerts and monitoring, again, into your PSA, whether that's ConnectWise, whether that's Kaseya, what you name your flavor here. Your ability to have that pushed in if we alert onto an issue, or to keep it all in Liongard if you don't want those tickets. Because we do have some MSPs who are like, oh, it's noisy once you start to start to alert on things. And what I have to say to those MSPs who say something is noisy is, this is all the more reason why you need to make sure you have your policies and have things situated appropriately, so you're not getting distracted by noise, but you know what's really important, and Liongard can help you with that. We can help tune that for you and give you best practice.
So that's a good point about noisy is probably the wrong word, because it's just doing what it's supposed to do. But you've run
it's
very
perception,
large,
right? That's and I like to talk about things in a very pragmatic way. As having been a former MSP, I can tell you that again, if you're not high on the maturity model in terms of having built out what your policies are and what you need to be looking for, it can feel noisy to a small guy who hasn't put in all the maturity and process. But if they invest the time and efforts, it won't be noisy, to your point. It'll be exactly what they need to keep their customers safe and keep their own business safe.
So the large MSPs that you run, what sort of department and who typically owns this kind of work?
So it's multi-departmental, but it probably starts in the network operations center and then moves out to service delivery and into finance even, because one of the things that Liongard also helps with is billing reconciliation and warranty management. So that's another area. And what I like to say to MSPs is that, good inventory management, good configuration change control leads to better financial management, because you're going to get better the more you automate, the less I like to say you're giving human error the pink slip. So you're not missing billings, you're not again, because you don't have something documented, you're not wasting hours in service delivery. From a network operations center, if you've tuned things appropriately, it's not too noisy, you're starting to see alerts that are there to help you. All of those things are what is the benefit of having a tool like Liongard in your arsenal.
And it's a good point around the centralized services, and most of the average technology businesses out there are still running very reactively. So even if we use the term managed services, we're not actually managing a whole lot. We've just fixed priced our support. So this sort of thing, like you said, requires that investment from the business to actually spend time on proper management processes and governance. And that requires resources to be assigned to it. And for a lot of the smaller MSPs, you are going to have to take a dip on service delivery times to make it happen. But if you push through, it'll improve. You'll have less tickets,
Yeah.
you'll have less issues.
And it's not a huge time investment, right? If let's say something were to take you a week to roll out, if you put someone on something, how much value are you going to get back to be able to onboard a customer within minutes and understand their inventory, to be able to not miss billings because you now actually understand all their license counts and you're keeping up with their warranty information, and oh, by the way, you're catching things that could add risk and complexity to your business in terms of if there's if something moves out of the configuration that you have specified as the best policy. All of those things are huge value, and it's a way to prove value. So the reports that Liongard has within it are things that you can monetize to your customer to be able to prove, show, and do audits to them, whether that's you want to do that in a recurring revenue model, again, charging them a few dollars per seat every month, or in a professional services practice where you're able to show them audits that now take you minutes versus hours or weeks. But you're able to show that value to your customer. And I'm really excited about, we're coming out with October 5th, our new cyber posture dashboards, which are going to be able to be shown to customers to tell them where their cyber posture is. And I think that this is another really monetizable capability that's coming soon in Liongard.
It's an interesting point around the monetization, because if I look at our standard MSP, we've been around for a long time. We sold our clients the dreams, and we've always had inventory management or asset management in our agreements. We sold that like 10 years ago, and now they're hearing that we're not doing it properly. How do we go back to our clients and say, actually, there's a better way, and we need to absorb this cost to do it better?
Well, here's the thing. First of all, I don't think you go back and talk to them about inventory management. I think you go back and you talk to them about configuration, change detection, and response, CCDR. I think you say, look, ultimately, cyber criminals, they're upgrading their tools every day. We as MSPs, we have to upgrade our tools every day to keep you safe. And having a tool that's here that is able to help us continuously monitor and alert and audit and detect the changes in your configurations that could make you vulnerable, and to also be able to provide cyber insurance defensibility, because we can go rewind back up to 18 months to show what a configuration was on any given date. That's hugely valuable, and we can't be afraid as MSPs to ask for our value. We provide really great value. If I put my MSP hat on, we provide really great value, and again, leveraging new tools in your stack requires that you sometimes have to charge a little more, and customers that are worth having will pay a few extra dollars to have that reassurance.
Yeah, and even if you look at it this a different way, I'm always pro, let's charge more money and show our value. But if we're already maybe on the premium side, and the industry's commoditizing, so there's legitimate challenges going on. The other way to look at this is the ROI. So we mentioned a bit offhand around, like, it could save us time with notifications that something's changed instead of spending hours trying to fix it, or even like what you said with the warranty, having clearer warranty expiration dates and things on devices. If you're reselling that faster in a proactive manner, it's going to do a few things. It's going to obviously generate you more revenue and gross profit out of the direct sale. It's also going to reduce your labour effort on the service desk because you've reduced the amount of tickets coming in and the time to remediate issues. So I think you can look at this two ways of generating more revenue out of your agreements or reducing the labour effort, which is a very costly part of our agreements. So I think people just need to look at this in a different way. I think it's what I'm hearing from our conversation so far. It's a very big mindset shift from just being reactive to being more around the governance side.
Absolutely. And I think the more we can help MSPs make that switch to, again, being proactive and setting up the right stack and the right governance in IT governance in place. And I think there's questions about do MSPs actually even know what IT governance is? That's I think a place to start is really educating them about it's nothing more than having your standards in place and making sure you don't drift out of those standards. But having that, I think, is just so critical. And what I'm on a mission here at Liongard to help MSPs understand that if they set this up appropriately up front, they will see an ROI from a time savings perspective in terms of onboarding customers, offboarding customers, managing that risk. And again, I think, I believe that there is room to monetize. I mean, there are those MSPs that are out at a premium, but I would say there are fewer and far between. I find many more are not charging what they're worth. And so I hope to help them with Liongard, with our CCDR capabilities to better get what their value really is and be able to prove it to their customers.
But I'm going to ask you another question along the monetization side, because like you just said, not many are at the premium side, and there's still a great majority that do break fix work. They're not necessarily in a full or you can eat managed services package. So what sort of opportunities are there when you're not actually managing the environment to monetize something like the inventory management and configurations?
Well, I think there's professional services around audits, right? So there's certainly project work that can be done. It also can help you drive additional project and additional MRR. Like you find that, they don't have good password management. They don't have good MFA. They don't have, their managed backups are not, they all of these things are things that then lead to additional project work. Oh, their patches are, 5 revisions back. This is all new revenue that an MSP can go after, even if they're not leveraging it from I'll call it monetizing it at a managed services level. There's tons of project work that can be driven out of it as well.
I think what you said there with the audits are becoming more and more important, especially with the cyber security side, because what I'm seeing out in the industry at the moment is the MSPs or the IT support shops, whatever you want to call them, that aren't operating at this sort of governance, more mature level, doing compliance type work. If we're not doing this with our clients, there's quite a few clients that are starting to churn and go look for the mature ones because their current providers are not talking to them at the right levels, and their insurance brokers, their accountants, their lawyers are all telling them of all this risk. And it's not just me seeing this churn anecdotally. Microsoft is actually saying that they've had the most churn in recent times of partner record changes than they've ever had in M365 ever. So people are going and looking. So what you just said around audits for prospects, we can start charging those assessments and doing them more efficiently. And like you said, if they're on break fix, we'll get on top of them early and start identifying these risks.
Yeah, and Liongard does things to try to help you to be able to better sell and manage and onboard your customers. So for example, one of the things we do is we give you a time period that if you want to go out and be able to install the agent to be able to understand what's in a customer's environment, you can do that and not get charged for a period of time. And then, obviously, as you get that customer, really, you win, I'll call it truly win that customer, then you can put Liongard in place for the long term in order to be able to see their configuration, change detection and response. That's one of the other things that we do. Again, we try to be very pro helping the MSP to win business and understand and be smarter than their competitors when they leverage Liongard.
Yeah, take this on a different path, because you've triggered me with the MSP industry doesn't really know IT governance. So you having the experience that you do, what does proper IT governance actually look like?
Again, I like to simplify things and make it, to me, it is, you can take anything to the nth degree, is what I'll say up front. I think there are the things that truly affect your end customer or where the risk is. And I like to follow, you can follow NIST, you can follow CIS, you could the Essential 8, you name it. We can, you can go through any of those. But ultimately, good IT governance to me is understanding where your customers are most likely to have risk. It's in their Microsoft 365 environments. Is MFA turned on? It's in understanding and getting an inventory and understanding of all the different assets that are in their portfolio and seeing what are the riskiest of those assets, and making sure you have eyes on any configuration changes that are happening in those places. And it's having policies that are around how you want to set up the configurations of all of those different systems, and keeping eyes on when that changes, and knowing and having a process that is repeatable by anyone in your business, from the NOC to the service delivery team, to be able to follow if and when there is some level of drift. To me, that's the simplest way that I can describe what good governance requires. People, process, and technology in alignment to drive good outcomes for your customers.
You take that one step further. So if we're having that data, then it's the reporting to the client, isn't it, to get them to understand what the risks and what the opportunities are. So the flip side, isn't it?
Yeah, and the thing that I like to say is, don't assume that your customer understands everything that you're doing for them. They only see this much. I mean, the thing that used to frustrate me sometimes is, we'd have a customer just dialed in, just perfect, right, as an MSP, and there are no problems. And then the customer would call and be like, well, what am I paying you for? We don't have any issues. So when you have good reporting and you're able to show the visibility of, look, this is all the stuff that's changing at any given moment that we're keeping eyes on for you, and we're making sure is humming perfectly, so you don't have to do calls to the help desk, so you don't have any cyber breaches. All of these things, that's the value of having a good IT governance and risk mitigation platform like Liongard.
I'm not sure if Liongard does this. This is just a curiosity from the IT governance side. Is what's your view on how we embrace and empower and enable our clients with the shadow IT? Because MSPs are typically only stuck to the infrastructure layer and the end user support. We've always avoided applications, haven't we?
Yeah, it is interesting to me. So today, Liongard is doing that for some cloud applications. Again, obviously the Microsoft 365s, the Google Workspaces, and we're looking at how we extend. We have a beta on Salesforce and ServiceNow, and so it is an area that we're looking at seriously, and those are areas of risk. And I think when you think about shadow IT, it's not just the applications that are affected, right? They're pulling on your network. They're pulling on the other pieces. And now, if you're leveraging a tool like Liongard, you can sort of understand where the risk might come in and be able to better meet with those business people within a company to say, hey, this is where there is a risk and you need to put additional risk mitigation pieces in place to so it is something we're looking at, but right now it's mainly around domains, Microsoft, Google, Salesforce, and the MSP stack.
Which makes sense because that's where most of the MSPs sit at the moment. It's still very infrastructure heavy.
Yeah, but I think applications is one of the next domains, I'll say, that Liongard and others will be going after.
And it's a tough challenge, and for me, I probably highlight it's the mindset shift again for the traditional MSPs, that we can't be a roadblock because we're too risk mitigation focused and in the wrong ways. That the more that we're throwing up these roadblocks, the clients are just going to look elsewhere because, like
we
you
have
said,
to be business enablers, not disabler. Like we can't stop business from happening. We have to enable our customers' business to happen. And today, MSPs again can do that by looking at the cloud, the network, and the endpoints. And I think the further extension of applications is coming. I mean, it's coming for everyone, but ultimately, we do have to get good at our fundamentals. And so that's the thing I would say is don't get distracted by what's happening over there. But if you have good fundamentals, then hopefully the things that are riding on top are going to be you're going to have less risk because the fundamentals are there. Not no risk. We cannot take away all risk, but we can lessen it for our customers.
That's some great advice, and I've been finding this conversation very fascinating, and I could talk about this a lot because I used to have to deal with it in spreadsheets and do it all manually, and now there's tools out there to actually do this stuff, so it's exciting to me. And we've covered a lot of topics today, so in wrapping up, I'd love you to share with us what you think the main takeaway that you want everyone to take away from this, and then some practical next steps that if people are interested, what they need to do to start doing inventory management and CDMB stuff properly.
Yeah, so I think the first thing I just want the takeaway to be is that you need to have an IT governance and risk mitigation platform that includes your inventory management and how you're going to handle change. I am slightly biased. I do believe that Liongard is the right and best solution for that. And we would love to help you with our practical knowledge. I'll say all but one of us on our executive leadership team at Liongard come from being MSPs ourselves. So we're happy to share our practical knowledge, as is a large majority of our team. And then from a practical next steps, if you'd love to learn more about how Liongard could help you, please call your PAX 8 rep. We love our PAX 8 relationship, and we stand right beside PAX 8 in helping bring MSPs into the fold.
Well, thank you so much. I think this is such an important thing that we need to look at to lift our professionalism in the industry. It should be part of the fundamentals that we do, and we've been saying that we do this stuff for a very long time, and now we really need to actually start enacting this stuff with the risks around cybersecurity, let alone the efficiency improvements that we can get out. So thank you so much for joining me, Michelle. I look forward to having you again in the future.
Thanks so much, James.